Next on Pink Elephant Foxtrot, Culture Crunch, a recurring segment that examines the many pink elephants in the arts. This episode focuses on analog versus digital technology and is called Sleeper Wave. Did you ever turn your back on the ocean long enough to get hit by a sleeper wave? No matter how many times it happens, getting soaked always makes me feel indignant. It's hard to believe that there are people who can feel that big wave approaching. Billions of dollars have been made by savvy investors who knew when to ride the tide or get out of the way. But more often than not, the sleeper waves that hit us personally and the ones that affect society the most are the least predictable. On February 7th, 1964, America was hit by a cultural tsunami when the Beatles landed at JFK in New York. Thousands of screaming fans greeted them as they disembarked, and the roar was so deafening it drowned out the plane's engines.
Well, the Beatles arrived in New York today and advanced almost to the Hudson. The four English musical stars with their pudding bowl haircuts were greeted by about 4,000 shrieking teenagers at Kennedy Airport and mobbed by another large group of juveniles when they got to the Plaza Hotel.
Disoriented, the four mop tops were shuffled inside the terminal for their first press conference. And what a press conference it was. America had just lost its most optimistic leader, and as a nation, we really needed some distraction. The Beatles delivered and then some.
Be quiet first, question.
Would you please sing something?
No! Sorry.
Next question.
It turns out that you can sing. No, we need money first.
They got our attention with their humor and innocent 3-minute toe tappers, but as they drew us in, their music and their message became far more complex. I don't think anyone was expecting this trajectory. In their early interviews, even the Beatles thought they'd only last for a couple of years. By the time Sgt. Pepper was released, it was so revolutionary that it saturated the globe. By then, it was no longer just about the music. Politics, fashion, sexual liberation, freedom of expression. All of it changed radically, almost overnight. None of this could have happened without the use of technology, but much of the technology in the 60s and 70s, particularly multi-track recording, was analog and relatively new. Human beings are curious creatures, and our minds are not binary. Nations' analog technology tended to inspire us to make truly unique works of art because of, or sometimes in spite of, its inherent limitations. The Beatles created something wholly unique, and their music has far outlived the limited technology it was created on. Perhaps it's because analog technology places human beings in the driver's seat. It forces us to take an active role and spend time pressing buttons and turning knobs. And analog equipment had lots of buttons and knobs. When the sleeper wave of digital ones and zeros hit, almost anything seemed possible. But in the end, it was a total wipeout that left us submerged and gasping for air. Binary technology ended up inhibiting creativity. It led to a sort of dehumanization of music. Everything became quite homogenized after the digital revolution. Instruments were replaced by computers, and features like quantization have removed the human element by regimenting the beat like a metronome. Even the human voice is being held hostage by auto-tuning and lip-syncing. And when those ones and zeros go wrong, it can be very embarrassing.
And this is true. Girl, you know it's 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 girl.
On a Monday, I am waiting. Tuesday, I am fading.
We've gotten to the point that using pre-recorded tracks, like Milli Vanilli and Ashlee Simpson did, has careened past acceptable and is now considered old school. Recently, a reunion tour of Emerson, Lake, and Palmer was announced, despite the fact that both Greg Lake and Keith Emerson are, along with Generalissimo Francisco Franco, still dead. Drummers playing along with holograms. It used to be quite different. Have a listen to some early recordings of Louis Armstrong, Duke Ellington, Django Reinhardt, Jelly Roll Morton, Fats Waller, or Sidney Bechet. Every one of those recordings was done in one take, with absolutely no edits or overdubs. I have often wondered what it would be like if modern artists were forced to record the way they did in the 1920s. Turns out I wasn't alone. Guitarist Jack White has been obsessed with vinyl his whole life. He has been a major force behind a resurgence that has seen albums outselling CDs in recent years, but his understanding of all things analog goes far deeper. In a 2017 PBS documentary called American Epic, White and producer T-Bone Burnett recorded 20 contemporary artists using a recording lathe from the 1920s. Each artist got one take to record about 3 minutes of music onto a 78 RPM disc. It's a fascinating project because it illustrates just how special those early recordings are and how much work was involved in cutting just one side. Some of the artists White and Burnett recorded might not have been as successful if they had lived in an era without multi-track recording. But others, like Rhiannon Giddens, seemed completely at ease with the medium. Her one-take version of Ida Cox's 1 Hour Mama outshines the technology, which goes to show there is no hologram for artistry. Not yet, at least.